And now it's time to talk a little bit USFL as your New Orleans Breakers are 1-0, 22-15. They get the win over the Pittsburgh Maulers. Going to be doing it once a week with the man that covers the Breakers for you, Mr. Logan Perry at USFL_LEAUX is the way to give a follow. Logan, man, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, man. You said that you were looking forward to seeing what this team can do, and they get the win, and they were pretty impressive when you go back to it and look at it, scoring in all the quarters, the defense really kind of keeping Pittsburgh at bay here. What stood out to you when you go back and look at this game?
Well, I think it's the second half adjustments that they were able to make offensively, right? In the first half, you gave up 4 sacks. Offensive line, they struggled. McLeod was getting hit a lot. But in the second half, they came out, they were bringing in an extra offensive lineman, bringing in an extra tight end. And you saw, he was ripping them apart defensively, the Maulers, that is. He threw for 210 yards in the second half. So just the adjustments that Coach Flip was able to make and the offensive staff, that stood out to me. The defense, I knew it was going to be good, and they lived up and then some. They looked almost better than last year's defense. Mm-hmm. So that was really nice to see.
When you go back and look at this game, here's where you talk about some of the adjustments, and you kind of hinted at this last week that you thought they'd be just as effective on the offensive, and that maybe a little bit better, especially not knowing who their quarterback was going to be, but you kind of said McLeod could do it.
Yeah. Well, I just seeing, what he could do in the CFL, he's a 34-year-old quarterback that's still playing professional football. You don't just do that, right? Like, if you're still playing at 34, you're good. And he showed that. He made the right decisions, and I thought last year there were some times, I liked Kyle Sloter, but there was times where, you'd be like, oh, what read were you looking at right there, But McLeod, he made the right reads, he stood tall, he made plays, he did the things that I thought he could do.
I can't get past the fact that I think he looks like Ben Roethlisberger.
They, in the first, 10 seconds of the game, Joel Klatt said he wanted to call him Baby Fitzpatrick. I thought that was funny.
Yes. Now that you say that, you're right. No doubt about it, man, for sure. But look, it's gotta be, new coach, new quarterback, all that. How big is it to get that first win under your belt in the first game, coming off of a season in which you played the postseason? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's huge, right? It's almost like a little bit of weight lifted off, There's so many question marks. Like you said, new quarterback. You got also, big pieces on defense, right? New offensive coordinator, new scheme, just all this stuff. And, there's a lot of weight there. And then you kind of just feel that weight come off of you. And then especially for Flip, for Coach Flip to get his first win as a head coach, which I thought for a first-time head coach, he did really well. A lot of times a first-time head coach, they'll make some situational errors, some stupid timeouts, but I thought he did a really good job.
I know one of the things that was brought up too, obviously on social media, you saw them, was the fact that he actually ran onto the field. Why was that such a big moment? Explain that to listeners.
Yeah, well, he has a spinal condition, and it's been really hard for him to just walk. I think the past couple of months, I believe. And he made a promise to himself that he would run on the field, the next game he was able to coach, and he did that, and you could see he was in pain, but you could also see the emotion on his face, some tears were shed. But as much as it means a lot for him, it means a lot for these players. They talked about it in the post-game press conference. To see their head coach, no matter what's going on with how much he's hurting, for him to have that smile on his face and that hunger to get better every day, it drives the players. They all talked about it in that post-game press conference.
Speak with Logan Perry, covers the Breakers and the USFL for you. I think one of the things the reason I asked you that too is I go back to that goal line stand. Early fourth quarter, Breakers were up, I think 15-9. And you have that stand, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm trying to connect dots or kind of think about the fact that I know in teams that we've seen in the past, a lot of times they embody the personality of their coach and things of that nature. So to hear you say that, I go back to that goal line stand, and I wonder if that's part of it, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, again, they talked about it in the post-game press conference. You know, they had Vontae Diggs, one of the linebackers, and he said, you know, one of the things is when you see your coach go through that, it makes the whole defense go like, hey, we want to get you the ball back. Like, we want to help you out too. And you know, they play emotional, and especially on that goal line stand, I mean, they just wanted it more.
One of the other things, Logan, that stood out to me about not only that game, but just the weekend overall, pretty good viewership, huh? I mean, I think Buddy was texting me and a couple of other friends were texting me here as well. Between the XFL and USFL, I kind of feel like people are giving spring football a chance. What's the league's reaction to the opening weekend?
Yeah, they seem pleased, right? And I mean, like you said, you know, spring football, you know, it's had moments where people have felt burned, right? You know, leagues have folded and whatnot.
Yeah.
But, you know, people saw the USFL get through a year and they saw the XFL come back. You know, they're excited. It's good quality football and people are tuning in, right? And even though they had the NBA playoffs going on and I believe the MLB and NHL were playing, but I mean, people were still watching games, so
I'm interested to see how it continues to go on. And look, I think you definitely saw, obviously from where that area is, a lot of people support Birmingham and they wound up winning it last year and things of that nature. But when we talked last week, we wondered if there was going to be more than a couple of teams be able to maybe have a shot for it. And I know it's early. We only have 1 weekend, but just your overall impressions from all the games that you saw or kind of look at the scoreboard from this past weekend. What you think?
Right. Well, I thought Philadelphia would be good offensively, and they were. Michigan is the team that kind of surprised me. Now, I also think that could be a product of Houston being bad, because Houston, they lost literally all of their coaches except for one, and I think he's like an offensive line coach or something. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there, but Michigan, they looked good. I thought Memphis actually put up a good fight. I thought that game was going to get ugly early on. Brady White threw a really bad pick, and then they switched quarterbacks, but they fought and they rallied behind their crowd. They're going to be, you know, a team that New Orleans is going to have to battle through. Pittsburgh offensively was worse than I thought they would be, but their defense was as good as I thought it would be, and they gave us trouble in that first half. And then Birmingham, they're the champions, and they showed it in that first week. You know, they took care of business. So,
and Houston is the next opponent for the Breakers, and you want to think about some storylines here. You mentioned the turnover of the coaching staff there. Curtis Johnson, former New Orleans Saint assistant coach at receivers, Tulane head football coach, getting another chance to be a head coach here against Houston Gamblers. So I was going to ask you about his opportunity there, but you kind of just told me it's a challenge right now for him, huh?
Yeah, it's just, you know, he got that job kind of late, and they lost their entire defensive staff, you know, because, see, like, Coach Flip was able to retain the defensive coordinator and some of the defensive staff, so that helped out a little bit, but Curtis Johnson basically had to start from scratch with not a whole lot of time, so, you know, they're new offensive scheme, new defensive scheme, so they're kind of just, it's going to take a couple weeks for Houston, which could benefit New Orleans because we play them this week. So.
Right. So it gives you it gives you a chance to maybe go up 2-0. But so when you look at Houston, is it more one of those things, hey, on the field, talent-wise, the Breakers should have the advantage?
I believe so, yes. I mean, like I said, you saw what Michigan was able to do. I also just think we just kind of match up well. Like, we're going to throw the ball a lot. And you see, I mean, Michigan's quarterback went 18 of 20 for 215 yards and 3 touchdowns, no picks. That's a really good stat line.
Yeah.
And I think McLeod Bethel-Thompson is a better quarterback than the Michigan quarterback. So I think it just matches up better for us against them.
For Breaker fans that are obviously going to watch their team, any other game or matchup that I should pay attention to this weekend that I may want to catch?
I would say Michigan and Philadelphia.
Okay.
That'll tell you how real or not real Michigan is.
Yeah.
And then I would take a look at Birmingham, Memphis, just because you always want to watch out for, you know, the South teams, because those are the teams that determine whether you get in the playoffs or not. So that'll be a big matchup. Now that game's in Birmingham, so I do think that Birmingham will end up edging that one out.
Right.
But, that'll kind of tell us how good Memphis could be.
Yeah, it's true. Stallions, Breakers, Showboats, Gamblers over in the South Division. And then up in the North, it's the Panthers, Stars, Maulers, and Generals. Logan, anything else we need to be paying attention to for Breaker fans? Anything specific like, I don't know, a reason or a stat or a player to keep an eye on maybe on the defensive side?
I would say to watch for the linebackers because, one, they're the heart and soul of our defense and arguably our team just as leaders and, just on the field. But I think that Houston's going to run the ball. They're going to try to run the ball, and they also have a mobile quarterback, really mobile quarterback. So, it's going to be a lot on our linebackers to make sure that he doesn't get any long runs on 3rd and long, make sure he doesn't do anything crazy, and also just to make sure that we can stop the run. So I would look out for our linebackers on defense.
All right. Hey, we're going to be chatting with Logan every single week on Tuesdays around this time. Keep you posted, and so you know what you're doing and watching when the Breakers take on whoever it is they're taking on a weekend. This week it's Houston Gamblers. Curtis Johnson, the head coach over there, but as Logan just said, you giving NOLA 2-0 start here?
I do. I think they start 2-0.
Okay, that's not bad. It's much better than 0-2 or 1-1. That is for sure in the young season. Logan, as always, man, appreciate the time, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. At USFL_LEAUX. The way to give Logan a follow. Again, covers the New Orleans Breakers for you over on the USFL. Buddy wants to know what channel. I'll find out. Logan, are you still with us?
Yes. It's on USA Network, but you can also watch it on Peacock.
Okay, there you go, buddy. USA Network and on Peacock. I'll jot that down. Thank you, Logan. Appreciate it, bud. For sure. All right, quick break. We come back. Will Guillory will join us. We'll talk a little NBA playoffs and Pelicans. You're listening to the Sports Hangover on ESPN New Orleans.